See, this is for our supervisors and owners. To give you a quick rundown on Deputy, this is where we do all of our staff scheduling, obviously timesheets and approval of pay. So it does it all automatically, integrates into Xero, and we'll take you through a few steps on how that works. So let's start with obviously bringing someone on. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go into the people menu. Now in the people menu, this is where obviously all of our employees are based on their location. So if we wanted to add another person, in the top right hand corner, we've got the ability here to click on add people. We want to onboard an employee. So in this case, we're going to onboard John Smith. We put in an email address, we put in a mobile, and we make sure that we choose add from list of templates, that we choose the employment contract. Now what this will do is send an email to that email address and get them to register an account, fill in all of their details, including all of their tax information. They'll have the employment contract, which will need to be signed and sent back. Now we'll have an employment contract for each individual store, so you'll see on that template that it only relates to your store. And then once that's done, then they're onboarded. Once they're onboarded, they'll show up here with all of the information on who they are, the date of birth, the addresses, etc. Again, this is all dummy data, but it will fill that information there. And then we can go through and obviously work on our employment status, which will be the next video. Ordered the employee, they've filled out all the details themselves. What we're going to do is just check all of the information. So we're going to go into this person here. Now obviously not all the information is completely filled in because it is dummy data, but we'll have all the information that the person would have filled in, including address, date of birth, emails, emergency contacts, all of that information would be there. Then we can go to employment, and in employment we can obviously set what their access level is, what stores they're working in. So if we're sharing across multiples, that's obviously something we need to put in there. When they were hired, any training that we've added in there, so obviously what modules of training they've done, and obviously the payroll information. So again, this would obviously ask you questions like what award we're using, what their pay rate is, and by filling in that information, it can just be directly imported to Xero and ensure that everything matches up with the timesheets. Everything else here is very self-explanatory, like setting the work periods, how many hours they're working, any leave entitlements that we need to add in, the forms and documents. So in the documents, it will have their employment contract and any other forms that we need to upload. And then we can go into things like shifts, any of the leave that's been requested. So they have the ability themselves to log into the system and request leave, of which you can approve or decline from a supervisor level. And that just makes it nice and easy for you. Any of the unavailability, so again, they can say that they're not available, and that's why we always make sure that we do our rosters a month in advance. So when people are putting in their own availabilities, they need to make sure that they're putting in before we do our roster. And that's basically how you set up a person. To know how to roster them for the shifts. So if we go up the top here and click on schedule, so in schedule it will have a list of our rosters. So specifically make sure that you're at the right location. So in this case we're just going to have a look at Vineyard. Now this is real live data, so it will show you exactly what will happen. So two very, very important things. The first one is we need to make sure that we're managing our wages per week. So this is the total, including super and tax. This is our daily cost, as well as how many hours we've rostered staff on for. So very important that we manage that. And I'll show you in a further video on how to set those requirements so that if it does go over, then it will become red and you'll be aware of it straight away. You can very easily see here, we've set up a fairly simple template, which we provide to you as well. But you can see here, very easy to be able to put someone in. Now, these are locked because the shifts have already taken place. So we're going to go to today, which is Thursday. Double click on that, and you can see here very simply how many hours Natalie's working, her cost, the shift length, and the approximate shift cost it will be. We can also see what areas she's working in. So in this case, Natalie's our cook, and she's starting at 8 and finishing at 2:30. If we wanted to put any break details in there, we can as well, but very simply, that's how you do it. Now, if you want to change the shift, again, we click on the drop down and we can change it to anyone. Now, the best thing about deputy is it tells you whether this shift will suit the employee you're trying to find. So not preferred is a good example of they're not registered as a cook, they're registered only as a front counter server or a chicken and chips. But if we go down here, you'll see that Gabby is not available because she's already working a shift at another truck, or she's already working a shift on your truck. So very, very intuitive there in regards to telling you what information, and being able to replace those shifts. So we're going to close that window. On the left-hand side, we can see down here as well, we've got all the information as to what the employees are making per week, how many hours they're doing. Very, very important, and you can obviously then separate that information as well. Now we've learned how to schedule, what we can do is we can do things like copy our shifts. So we can copy the shifts that we've done here, and we can import them to next week, or you can copy them to other weeks. So once you've got a template set up, it's very, very simple just to keep going through and obviously, adding those shifts. So we need to make sure at all times that we've published our shifts up to a month in advance. Very important to make sure that staff obviously have the opportunity to say that they can't work. So that's the scheduling screen. We can go back to what we were talking about at the beginning here, and that was to be able to set the requirements for the wages for the week, plus obviously the daily budgets. Very important to keep an eye on it so we can manage everything. So if we click on here, over here on View Business Insights, this is where we set the requirements. So here we can set a daily wage budget, which is the top part that you saw back here. So if we go back to here, this is the daily wage budget up the top here. And you can see when you hover over, it actually tells you all the information for that site, which is really intuitive. And the more you use it, the more information it'll give. So we'll go back to View Business Insights. We'll look at our daily wage budget. So for Monday, we're going to say 450. Now, hey, we've actually been profitable. So we've spent less than what we've budgeted for. So 650 on Tuesday, again, spent less. Wednesday, 516, etc., etc., etc. So down the bottom, we can see the weekly total, and then we can see what our actual cost is for our scheduled wages. So great, we've got a 30% variance as to what we've budgeted, which means that we may be able to reduce our budgets, or we've just had a really good week and maybe there's, we haven't had as many staff on. The other feature that you can do is the weekly hour budget. Now, the weekly hour budget, what we can do is schedule how many hours you're allowing. Now, by hours, it means how many staff are working and the hours that they require. So one staff member might be 8 hours, another staff member might work 8 hours. Well, that's 16 hours. So in this case, we've scheduled 23 hours, 23, 26, it's all there. We can actually even schedule it what we want the total to be, and then see the variance there as well. So really, really good way to obviously make sure that we're checking what things are costing us. Because as we know, the most expensive part of this business is staff. So the more we can get that staffing cost down, the more profitable the business will be. Everything else there in regards to sales and metrics we don't use, but there'll be something down the future that we'll potentially bring in. And that is how you do your budgeting. Schedules, we've been able to do our budgets. What we need to now do is obviously being able to pay our staff. So what we do there is we go into our timesheets, and we've got the ability here to approve timesheets. So in the timesheets, it will bring up the date. In this case, we've put in a week. So we're going to go up here and we're going to choose today. Now we're currently at Shell Harbour, so that's fine as well. And we can see the people that have been working their shift today. Now, we can see what time they started. If we go back to yesterday because the day hasn't finished. So if we click on Leah, for example, you can see that she worked 5 till 10. She had a 30-minute break, and this is the pay rate that she was paid at, which most of our staff will be on, the casual FFIA 003 pay rate, if they're a supervisor, level 2, level 3. Now, this has already been approved, so the store manager's been there and approved it. But if there's any issues, it's very simple. We just click on Unapproved Pay. We can then change the hours, we can change the information, and then if we approve it, we can also unapprove the time. So here again, we can say, well, no, look, she started at 6 o'clock and finished at 10 o'clock. So we just click here and change it. I won't do it because it's live. We can see what area she worked in, how long her meal break was. Very simple. Now, once you've approved that and you've gone through and you've done your whole week, so if it's done, it will be green. If it's not done, it will be yellow. Then we can very simply go into export. Now, we'll have to set up the export, of which we'll show you how to do. So if you haven't done that yet, please contact head office and we'll manage that for you. But very simply here, we can go through and choose all of the people. We can see what our staffing cost us for the week, how many total hours. Did we have a variance on last week? Yes, we did. So we actually saved a bit of money on hours, but it cost us a bit more. So we might have had a little bit more expensive staff on this week. We can then go through and check every little bit of information, what the staff are being paid, what times they worked in, whether there was breaks. All of those things are very important. And then once we're happy with that, we hit export selected items. Now, when we hit export selected items, it instantly will import into Xero as a timesheet, and we'll take you through how to use and create a pay slip from that import. And that's how you import timesheets and pay your staff. Our roster, how to pay our staff, and how to obviously approve all the timesheets. What we're going to do is go through some very simple data in regards to the location. So up the top here, we've got a tab that says locations. We can click on that tab and it will list your location. In this case, we can see all of them because I'm in dummy data. So if we click on here, you can see the location information. We can hit edit settings. Now in edit settings, we can set our operating hours. So very important so that staff can't clock on before 8 o'clock because the store's not open. You can then obviously see, put in the address details, etc. We can go through and add or remove areas. So as you saw on the roster, we had cook, front counter, chicken and chips, bases. We've put all of that information in there. There's actually one in here, so I'll remove that one, and you can see it's quite easy and very intuitive to work with. You've also got scheduling as well, so we can actually go through and set up some settings. So for example, being able to present changes in shifts. So if somebody wants to change it and they don't have your permission, that they can't do things. If a staff member can't make a shift, they can't then send it to someone else and say, are you available? So we can change things like that. There's a lot of really cool features in here. Again, something that we'll probably go through in a little bit more detail at the time of setup, but worth having a look at as well. Again, same for your timesheets as well. So you can clock in and clock out. The requirements that they can use around there as well. So there's plenty of little features in there that you can utilize that maybe make it a little bit easier for you. We allow you to sort of decide which ones you want to use and which ones you don't. Things like rounding as well. So if someone's clocked on at 5:32, it will round it down to 5:30. Or if they've, clocked on at, 5:55, it'll round it up to 6 o'clock. So things like that you can do, which saves you having to do it, manually. So that's how we do everything in the location. Now, the one thing that we'll do while we're here as well is we'll go in and show you how to link your Xero account to that location. It used to be in the locations tab, but now it's been moved over here. So we click on the option up the top left right-hand corner. We click on integrations, and very simply, we can then make sure what we've got integrated. So in this case, it's already connected, but we click on Xero. And then once we've clicked on Xero, we can go down to the location and click configure. Now, when we go to the configure space, it will actually ask you to log in. So you'll fill in all of the information, which it's already done here, but you'll fill in all of the information as to what the connection is. So you'll use your username, your password. It will then sync the two together so that when you do an export, it'll automatically export the data straight into the timesheets of Xero. Then you'll approve the timesheets on Xero just to double check. Once you've done that, it will then go into the ability to be able to pay employees. So again, very, very simple and intuitive, something that you can quite easily go through and have a look at. And that's pretty much all we need to do for Deputy.